My name is FilmCore. This is the animated introduction to Godzilla the series, and I just spent the last few weeks using visual effects, 3D modeling, and Unreal Engine to bring the best animated Godzilla show into real life. But before we get to that, in case you don't know, Godzilla the series is the sequel to the widely maligned 1998 movie. But unlike the movie, the show gave Godzilla back his atomic breath, his ferocity, and frankly, put the god back into Godzilla. And when 9-year-old me discovered it on YouTube, I was completely hooked. And all these years later, it still kicks ass. But not only did I always want to see it in live action, I fear the show has been forgotten by Godzilla fans, which is unacceptable. This show is awesome. It deserves better. So, armed with my 3D skills, my gaming PC, and a deeply irresponsible amount of free time, I'm going to rebuild the entire intro from scratch and bring Godzilla the series into real life. Or at least a cool 3D version of it. Anyways, the first thing I needed, like always, was a small army of 3D models. And like in most Godzilla movies, the intro is pretty much split into two categories: monsters and humans. For obvious reasons, I started with the monsters.
I just think they're neat.
Godzilla himself was no problem, as I already have a pretty great 1998 model I made a while back, which meant I could move straight onto the Crustaceous Rex. So I opened up Blender and started sculpting. But unlike Godzilla, I had basically nothing to work from besides the cartoon. So I had to figure out what this bizarre lobster squid thing would actually look like as a real animal. Once I was happy with the sculpt, I could bring him in for texturing. I really tried to make him feel smooth, wet, shiny, and just generally unpleasant to touch. And we had our C-Rex. Now what's funny is that apart from Godzilla and the C-Rex, none of the other monsters actually appeared in the series. They were all concept designs created specifically for the intro. They therefore weren't given their own names, but instead given nicknames based on existing Toho monsters, which made researching them considerably more confusing than it needed to be. First up was Flying Gigan. I sculpted him up, textured him, rigged him, and spent a day or two building a creature that appears for only about 5 seconds. Excellent use of my life. And that's when I realized my huge mistake. You see, I started this project thinking this would be an easy video to make, as not only did I already have Godzilla, but the intro is only a minute long. How much work could it be? I then realized that nearly every one of the 30 shots introduced some new monster, character, environment, vehicle, or other asset that I somehow had to recreate, some of which only appear on screen briefly. Very briefly, like the last 3 monsters, whose entire screen time was less than 3 seconds. So rather than spend a week modeling these creatures, I made the very adult and responsible decision not to make them and instead leave them for later.
Responsibility.
And it was now time for every kaiju fan's favorite part, the human characters. I wanted to start with Dr. Nico Totopoulos.
It's Totopoulos.
That's what I said. Now, if you have seen the show, you'll know that Movie Nico and Show Nico are basically two different people. Movie Nico is shy, soft, and played by Matthew Broderick. Cartoon Nico looks like he spends his weekends fighting terrorists. And you actually see this reflected in the chisel design of the latter, who I believe was modeled after its voice actor Ian Ziering. This guy.
Maybe that's how sharks evolved over the last 20,000 years.
So I built a new metahuman and tried to find a good middle ground between the cartoon design and the actor. He somehow came out looking a little like Whitney from Smallville, but what are you gonna do? I couldn't find an overshirt model set up for metahumans, so I instead grabbed this outfit, removed the backpack, made the jacket red, and the pants beige. And we had Dr. Nico Totopoulos.
It's Totopoulos.
I know.
Next up was the rest of the cast. For Elsie, Craven, Audrey, Animal, and Hicks, I tried to match them to their movie actors as closely as I could, since the animated versions are pretty clearly based on them. But likeness is one of the hardest things to nail in 3D, and with more time, I definitely could have gotten them a lot closer. Randy was probably the most fun to make. Just had to give him some big cheekbones, make him racially ambiguous, and give him the most aggressively 90s outfit imaginable. And last but definitely not least, we have Monique, my beloved. She was probably the trickiest, as I had to find a balance between the more exaggerated cartoon design and something that still felt believable as a real person. But with Monique finished, we finally had the whole cast, which meant it was time for animation. But before we get to the rest, has this ever happened to you? There's a reason the biggest problems need the biggest team, just like there's a reason why Morgan & Morgan is America's largest injury firm. If you're injured due to someone else's negligence, Well, you deserve to know your options. Not all law firms are the same, and Morgan & Morgan has a proven track record of fighting for the people for over 35 years. Whether it's a car accident, a slip and fall, or hypothetically a 300-foot sea monster ignoring basic city safety regulations, you need an army by your side. And Morgan & Morgan fits that bill, with over 1,000 lawyers and 100 offices nationwide. They know a thing or two about getting their clients the compensation they deserve. You don't think you can afford them? That's the best part. Their fee is free unless you win. So if you're ever injured, you can check out Morgan & Morgan. To see if you have a claim, you can go to forthepeople.com/filmcore from the description. And now back to Godzilla. For the monsters, I sent the 3 finished models over to my animator, Iron, who started working through all the shots they appear in. The humans were a little more complicated, because before I could animate them, I needed to actually build the world they were standing in. So first up, the Brooklyn Bridge. I bought a cheap model, replaced basically all of its textures with higher quality materials, and started building out the shots around it. I added in moving cars by animating this image plane in 3D. Found some pigeons, made them fly, and we needed the most important character, the driver. I made a new metahuman, made him old and bald, and for his animation, I turned to my second animator, Mr. Miximo. I downloaded this driving animation, then used an additive animation layer to adjust the pose, timing, and performance to match the original shot. This is what I did with all the humans moving forward. Iron sent me Godzilla's walk cycle, which let me drop him into the scene, make him outrageously big, and get the shots. It was now time for New York City. I used this model pack, just copied and pasted the example level, and it was now time to face my biggest nemesis for this whole project, the crowds, because I did not have time to make 20 metahumans for randos. Luckily, Unreal has generic background humans made for exactly this purpose. I could drop them into the scene, choose either male or female, hit random, and suddenly I had an entire crowd. I threw some running animations onto them and offset the timing so they weren't all fleeing Godzilla in perfect synchronization. Saying it back now makes it sound not too hard, but it's the part that had me most stressed. I got the rest of the animations back and could blast through the rest of the scenes. I reused my Empire State Building from my King Kong video, built out the pier, dropped in helicopters and tanks to the New York scene, and started building out all the remaining shots. For the missiles, I used a particle system for the smoke trail, attached a point light to the projectile, and animated the whole thing flying through the scene, and capped it off with some explosions. Then the time of reckoning arrived. The final shot with all the other monsters I had put off. But this time around, procrastinating was the right choice, as it forced me to find pre-existing models which actually ended up fitting pretty well and saved me a lot of time. I found this hell spider, this disgusting worm creature which I gave extra detail, and finally this fat worm thing, which just needed a couple of horns. And the best part is that they all had pre-existing animations. Thank you. I built out the rest of the scenes and could hit render. Once that finished, I brought everything into After Effects for the final composite. I added atmosphere, post-processing, extra water, debris, basically all the stuff that makes 3D renders stop looking like 3D renders. Then came all the little things I've been conveniently ignoring. The shark graphic on the heat seeker, N.I.G.E.L, the water interaction, and the title card. For the shark graphic, I simply took the official animated design, upscaled it, then applied it as an image on top of my footage. N.I.G.E.L only appears in one shot, so building an entire 3D model made absolutely no sense. I tried making a photoreal composite, but ran out of time and ended up using AI for this one tiny element. I know, I'm sorry guys, sometimes these things happen. The second hardest part was anything involving water, because water simulations scare me. So I tracked in a bunch of water elements and did my best to fake the interaction. One day I will confront my fear, but today was not that day. For the titles, I downloaded a font and remade the logo using a bunch of these theme elements just layered on top of each other. Make sure to check out AE Juice if you want cool stock elements like these. With this, we had the finished visuals. And finally, I brought everything in for sound design and added the original score, which YouTube immediately reminded me I absolutely could not use. So I found a new track that captured the same energy. And finally, we were done. And so, after weeks of modeling, animation, and compositing, it was finally time to see if all of this was actually worth it, and hopefully remind the world just how awesome this show is. So, without further ado, this is my recreation of the introduction to Godzilla the series. So guys, did I do the original justice? And would you actually watch a live action version? Let me know down below. Huge thanks to Morgan and Morgan for sponsoring this video. And if you like this, then check out my recreation of the intro from Godzilla Save the Earth. Alright guys, hope you enjoyed that video. I'll see you again real soon.